Hey everyone. So, let's dive into a really radical idea about why we struggle. I want you to try and forget everything you think you know about psychological symptoms, because the existential psychologist Rollo may, well, he's about to turn the whole thing completely on its head. Just take a second and let that quote sink in. What May is saying here is that our symptoms, the anxiety, the compulsions, the depression, they aren't a cry for help to get our freedom back. No, he argues they are literally walls we build to escape from freedom itself. I mean, what a wild idea, right? And that's really the big question we're going to explore. What if our mental health battles aren't about us being broken, but about a deep, maybe even unconscious choice to trade the terrifying vastness of total freedom for the safety of a smaller, more manageable world?
Okay, so to really get our heads around this escape from freedom, we have to start by looking at those walls we build. May asks us to completely rethink what a symptom even is.
And this is the core twist. Usually we see symptoms as a failure, right? A sign that we just can't cope. May says, nope, it's the exact opposite. A symptom is actually a successful adjustment. It's this creative, even if it's ultimately self-defeating, way to protect your very sense of self, your existence, or what he'd call your Dasein, from a world that just feels too big, too much.
So that begs the question, what is it about our world that feels so overwhelming? Well, according to May, the core problem of our modern times isn't what you might expect.
While past generations might have been really defined by things like guilt or anxiety, May believed our era is defined by something else entirely, a deep, profound sense of emptiness. It's that feeling of hollowness, a lack of purpose, and just a general apathy towards life. And this, he said, is the fertile ground where our modern struggles really begin to grow.
And this emptiness, it's all rooted in a feeling of alienation. It's that nagging sense that we're just not connected, not to our work, not to our communities, and maybe most frighteningly of all, not even to our own true selves.
In fact, May broke this down into 3 distinct types of disconnection. We can feel cut off from our Umwelt, which is the natural world around us. We can be alienated from our Mitwelt, the world of other people and relationships. And, maybe most critically, we can be disconnected from our Eigenwelt, our own inner world, our own sense of self.
So why? Why are we so alienated and empty? May believe the root cause is something really fundamental that we as a culture have lost along the way.
And his answer is pretty profound. He believed we've lost our guiding narratives, what he called our myths. Now, these aren't fairy tales. They're the big stories that give our lives meaning and a sense of purpose. When we let go of those, or when we deny our own potential, our destiny, we're just left adrift, with no compass. And when you feel directionless in a world that can often feel so impersonal and dehumanizing, it's pretty easy to start feeling insignificant, powerless. And what's the natural result of that? Apathy. We just shut down. We dim our own awareness to protect ourselves from the pain of it all.
And this brings us right back to that wild idea from the beginning. How do we cope with this overwhelming feeling of apathy and being insignificant? Well, we erect shields. So here you can see the tragic logic just unfold step by step. First, we lose our guiding stories. That leaves us feeling lost and insignificant. This sense of powerlessness then leads to apathy, an emotional shutdown. And finally, as a desperate strategy to cope with all of that, we build our shields. We develop symptoms. And this is exactly how the shield works. Just think about someone with severe OCD, whose rigid routines dictate every single moment of their day. What have they done? They've completely eliminated the anxiety-inducing burden of making new choices. Their world is small, it's predictable, and in a very strange way, it's safe. The symptom has successfully helped them renounce the chaos of freedom.
And of course, these adjustments can look very different from person to person. A temporary headache from stress is one version. But for others, this emptiness becomes a really deeply ingrained pattern, often starting in early life from experiences that taught them this was the only way to survive. To make this all a bit more concrete, let's look at a real-world example May used in his work, a man he called Philip.
So, Philip's story starts in a deeply troubled home. His mother was disturbed, his sister was schizophrenic. You can just imagine how chaotic and unpredictable that environment must have been for a child.
So what did he do to cope? How did he survive? Well, he learned really early on that expressing his real feelings, especially his anger, was dangerous. So he just pushed it all down. He suppressed his true self. The adjustment he made was to put on a persona, the good little boy. It was a mask that kept him safe, sure, but it came at a huge cost, his own authenticity.
He became alienated from his Eigenwelt, his own inner world.
And this adjustment he made as a kid just echoed throughout his entire adult life. It led to a whole series of self-defeating behaviors, including really destructive relationships with his wives. He was still playing out that same childhood strategy of renouncing his own feelings and his own needs.
And here's the crucial point, the big takeaway from his story. Philip's apathy wasn't a sign that he was a failure. It was the very strategy he developed as a child to preserve his own being. It was a necessary adjustment to an impossible situation. He chose security over freedom because to him, freedom felt like it would lead to annihilation.
And Philip's story just brilliantly illustrates this fundamental choice that Rollo believed is right at the very heart of the human condition for all of us.
Because ultimately, we all face this choice, every day. On one hand, we can embrace our destiny. It's a path that demands we face our anxiety head-on and accept the awesome and frankly terrifying responsibility of freedom. Or we can renounce it. We can choose the path of apathy, of rigid routines and neurotic symptoms, trading all that freedom for the illusion of security.
So I'll leave you with this question. Think about your own life, the small routines, the anxieties, the things that hold you back. According to May's logic, are they failures or are they shields? And in a world that so often feels overwhelming, which path are you choosing, moment by moment, freedom or security?